I think they're like pulling around so I can play.
Oh, they're trying to get you to park?
I guess.
Drive away.
You want to keep driving?
Yeah, drive away. See what
All right,
happens.
we're gonna like go off the grid on this one. Let's go. Where you want to go?
All right.
You got it.
We'll go. Let's go to South O.
South O.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hang too much in South O. I feel like if I walked through South O at night, it would just be a thing. You know?
South O has gotten. I know there were initiatives by Student Government Board when I was here to make South O feel safer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think there have been, you know, just things like lighting. You know, I remember Rohit was working on that at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Those are such cool things for kids to be working on because they're things that
Absolutely.
adults think about. But I don't know, it's neat.
Well, and it's also just that, like, students, you see things when you were a student that we didn't necessarily see because we're not walking to and from South Oakland every day. So
Right.
to get that student perspective to say, look, we need to do a better job, helps us make this a better campus.
Yeah.
You getting warm? You had the layers on.
So, this is one of the most unique articles of clothing I own. This is
What is it?
a Pitt Broadcast Journalism sweatshirt. Now,
Yeah,
that's
explain
not a
that.
major.
I know. Where'd you get that?
Well, so made friends with the people at the Pitt store
Okay.
at one point when I was here, and I was doing a self-design major initially.
Okay.
And it didn't work out because I approached it the wrong way. I had like a bunch of professors just being like, yeah, that works, you know, instead of like consistent things. So you got to make sure that's a great lesson. Make sure you are doing this properly. But I got the sweatshirt ahead of time, which maybe I should have done that. But they were like, I don't think broadcast journalism is a major. When I went to go fill out the form, I was like,
Right.
oh no, it totally is. And they did it. So I
Wow.
got this, and then I still have it. And you know what? There's a lot of Pitt alum who work in broadcast journalism, so it feels representative of them. There's a guy named Dave Delosier. He's a Pitt alum.
Okay.
And he actually came and he does sessions at the stations that, like mine, that are owned by the parent company. And he's a story consultant. He's won 35 Emmys.
Wow.
Yeah.
From Pitt.
From Pitt.
Wow.
And he walked in. He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Pittsburgh." "You?" He said, "Pittsburgh." And he said, "Where'd you go to school?" I said, "Pitt." And he goes, "Go to Pitt."
That's cool.
Yeah. So.
Pitt folks are everywhere. Alumni everywhere. So you could be signaling like, hey, maybe we need a broadcast journalism program.
Yeah, you know, I think my education strongly came from extracurriculars and the resources on campus provided by, I think, you know, a combination of student affairs and the academic programs. You know, the Year of the Humanities was a great program. I remember just like that documentary class taught me so much about writing to your sound bites and things like that. And then, you know, places like athletics, you know, the amount of games I got to broadcast and things like that. I mean, when you're a minnow in a large lake, you don't get to do some of the things that, you know, I got to do and I know other kids got to do when, you know, you feel like some of the bigger fish in not a pond, but like it's more accessible. I don't know, there's something really nice about that.
Yeah, and I saw you I saw you doing athletic things, student organization things at Pitt Tonight. Yeah, so you were really involved when you were here.
Were you involved in school? Because you played basketball.
I played basketball. I played in undergrad, and I was the president of the first Black student union at Washington and Jefferson.
That's awesome.
So that was my extent, and I participated after my presidency was over. But basketball and Black student union was really how I got involved in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you? I feel like the natural transition from athlete to education is to go and be a coach.
Right.
Is that not like?
No, I think there's an assumption. Like I think there were a lot of people. Yeah, there were a lot of people who like assumed that that's what I would do next. Oh, are you gonna be a coach or go into athletics, and I never had any interest to do either.
Yeah.
And then like the folks who were I consider mentors, my professors said, you know, you need to go to graduate school.
Yeah.
And they recommended counseling or psychology, and so I had interest, and so I followed their advice. But I was done being a student athlete. I was done with the whole athlete thing, although I love basketball.
Yeah.
But I didn't want that, and didn't allow it to define me. I love athletics. I think people who work in athletics, if that's your thing, great. But it just wasn't what I wanted to do.
So last night, I spoke at the Panthers Under 30 event.
Okay.
With a Pitt alum named Julius Boatwright.
Okay.
And Julius has started Steel Smiling.
Okay.
Which is a nonprofit. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not familiar.
Okay, so it's Steel Smiling, and it's a nonprofit that focuses on mental health for the Black community.
Okay.
And I know mental health is something that's important to you.
Absolutely.
And I asked him this question. I'm curious to hear your answer to it, because it's something I've been thinking about living in the Midwest with farmers and mental health, with people who, have a lot of pride that, they don't want to like admit that they might be struggling in a certain area. And I know athletes struggle with this a lot too. So like, how do you have that conversation with someone about like, hey, if you are struggling, I'm here for you. When people, don't put their guard down necessarily, how do you make them comfortable to at least talk about it, right? I mean, you want them to not know they're not alone. Go down York Way. It's a great place.
York Way?
Oh, yeah. I lived here. I'll show you my apartment. But, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I think one of the things that we can do a better job of as people is sharing our own vulnerability, right? I think oftentimes people feel more comfortable, safer, opening up about their fears or anxiety when you've shared. So it's like to walk around and suggest that you're not dealing with issues, you're not struggling. Is that where you live?
Here, back up. I'll show you.
Okay. Let's see.
Much behind you. Up there.
Let's see.
Look at that.
Wow. Where'd you live? Upstairs?
So you see that gate right there?
Mm-hmm.
See the Pit Tonight sticker?
I see that. Oh, see, it's still there.
That was how I let people know where I lived.
That's your tag?
Right in there. That was my tag. And somehow it's still there.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, see, I had no idea. I've never been down the street either.
Oh, yeah. This is Las Palmas right here.
Okay.
Can you restate the answer to that?
I think to help, I've found that when I share with people and I'm vulnerable, right, and I talk about my struggles and my failures, people are more comfortable and are more likely to talk about theirs. I think too often we walk around and we just share the great stories and everyone's in a good mood. When you see people on social media, everything's great. It's like you're celebrating, and that's not real.
Yeah.
So I think people respond and real resonates with them, and so that's what I've tried to do, and I think people sort of get to where they're comfortable in their own pace. So I think it's about meeting people where they are. But I think the more vulnerable you are, I think people are more likely to feel comfortable sharing their vulnerability. And that's just been my approach throughout my entire life. And I think it's been helpful, at least in my experience.
That gives me a lot of confidence in how I've approached it in certain situations. I last night in my rock talk, that's what Marcy was labeled. I think it's a cool name for it. But she, I'll show you this one over here. This is a good house. Basically, well, here, I'll show you this first and I'll tell you.
Okay.
So,
you lived over here too?
Yeah, so you see this blue house right here?
I see that, yes.
Okay, so I lived with 6 guys, and we got a hot tub, like a blow-up hot tub off like Walmart.com, and we put it in the basement, and we filled it up with hot water. Like, we heated it up and everything. We went to Pool City, got the whole...
Okay.
And I think we used it maybe 3 times. It got just gross, man.
That sounds gross.
Yeah, I mean, South O has made strides, but I mean, look, you put a hot tub in a college dorm or a college, wherever. Don't put them in college dorms.
No, that would be a bad idea.
Yeah, it doesn't.
No chlorine or anything, just straight water.
We had chlorine.
You had chlorine.
We had chlorine. It still managed to get dirty. But I'll show you. Oh, yeah, well, here. So I've got another piece of
Jesse, what's up
clothing.
with the seatbelt, man?
Making a turn. It's traffic.
All right, what's this shirt?
So this is a jersey. I think it's actually a Jonathan Baldwin jersey.
Okay.
But Yogi Roth, who played for Pitt,
Mm-hmm.
he is one of the closest things I've got to a brother.
Okay.
He played for Pitt in the early 2000s, and
Mhm.
now he's with the Pac-12 network. But he was number 82. He signed this for me when I was
Wow.
hanging out and staying with him in LA when I was interning with Conan. And I think that was student affairs saying to stop driving. No, Yogi told me something that has just always stuck with me.
Mhm.
He tells me so many things, but one of the big things was something his dad told him, which was knowledge is no burden to carry.
Hmm.
And that idea of you can't run out of space in your brain.
Okay.
You know, for me, it equates to, well, you can't run out of questions to ask people. You can't run out of ways to learn about people.
Right.
And that was, at the rock talk I gave last night,
Mhm.
I talked about questions because I've always been asking questions.
Mm.
I flip interviews if I'm, like,
Right.
that's who I am, because over my Pitt experience, I learned that asking questions was how I'd learn about myself
Right.
and the world around me. And in those moments where you don't have a highlight, you don't have, you're struggling, those valleys,
Right.
answering those tough questions, as much as it sucks, like, that's what gets you to that next peak.
Absolutely.
And I think it was so valuable to have moments, being hospitalized, or not knowing if doing sports broadcasting was for me, and then turning on NBC, or going. I mean, I went a year and almost 2 years after school without a full-time job, and I mean, I was able to find my next thing because I just asked questions, and it was, what can I do right now?
Right.
Who can I work with? All those things. I mean, that's to me, that was my Pitt experience in a nutshell.
Wow.
Yeah. But Yogi, he was probably my first Pitt experience. I mean, I went to games as a kid, but I don't know. He roomed with Antonio Bryant
Okay.
and Larry Fitzgerald,
Okay.
and Andy Lee was like one of his best friends, the punter.
Wow.
These are,
Right.
Yogi's an all-star dude, and but these guys are Pro Bowlers, right? And
Right.
they're awesome. They'd come to my Little League games, and you look over, you have no idea that you've got one of the greatest punters in history just watching you play second base. And I don't know, there was something really, really cool about that. But that was sort of the start of I think what built context behind Pitt for me.
Okay. Well, that's, I think, and like I said, your perspective is very unique, just growing up here and just being part of your childhood. And then, you told me when you were a student, you went to Penn State, transferred to Pitt, and, even Squirrel Hill. I mean, thinking about, last year this time, the horrific act of anti-Semitism at Tree of Life. I mean, you were part of that community.
That's my synagogue. I was bar mitzvahed there.
That's where you bar mitzvah there.
Yeah.
So were you? How did that impact you last year when you heard about?
So that was one of the events that sort of led me to even apply to jobs outside of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I guess it really made me kind of look in the direction of the idea of leaving.
Okay.
Not approach it, but just think about it. And it wasn't to escape it.
Okay.
It was the fact that, well, what's going on? We never know what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
There are things out there that we don't know could happen. What are the possibilities? I don't know
Right.
what that thought process was, but then it came time, a few weeks later, my mom's best friend, she passed away, and she was she was an aunt. She was more than an aunt. And that was the moment that I decided, you know what, I gotta send those cold emails that I'm on. I can't preach and not practice.
Right.
And I sent the cold email. Fun fact for you, cold emails are only cold to the person that's sending them. Because once you send it, you've taken that uncomfortable step. And now
Yeah.
it's just an email.
That's true.
But yeah, no, that impacted me. I think Tree of Life impacted me in the sense that I've been watching news coverage and seeing social media coverage of mass shootings and gun violence, but to feel so safe in your hometown, in your home neighborhood, and then all of a sudden to have that happen to you, I mean, that's really like, it totally flips your perspective.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been maybe an hour after, I learned what was going on. I remember I walked up there just to see the caution tape, because for me that was the tangible. Like, I needed to see that in order to fully take in what was going on.
Wow.
And I remember looking at the ground the night after, or the day after the vigil on Sunday morning, and seeing candle wax on the ground where, like, I've just walked my whole life, and it's weird to think that there's people in other towns that have that same view of the crosswalk that they've grown up going back and forth on, like having those things. And there's the political issue of gun rights. There's the just the human rights issue of being able to feel safe wherever you are. But then there's I think beyond that, it's just being able to coexist and being able to not have a fear that anything would happen. I had always heard about anti-Semitism. You study the Holocaust. You hear about neo-Nazis and people like that, but you don't really I don't know. I guess it's all seemed like not fiction, because I know it's real.
Yeah.
But when you're only hearing about it in books or in media, like, it doesn't really register in the same way. And so I don't know. It really changed a lot for me. And I don't know if you've had an experience like that, whether it be with a certain crime that happened with I mean, there's so many examples. My mom has given examples of I think the Kent State shooting, like things like that.
Yeah, as a graduate of Kent State, that's very much a part of the culture, and remembering and never forgetting that at Kent State.
Yeah.
When I went to graduate school there, and even the Tree of Life tragedy. I mean, I grew up in a Jewish community, University Heights. So, to some extent, it took me back to University Heights last year this time, and I was just thinking about, like, I used to walk by synagogues. We had a Hebrew school in Cleveland Heights that my friend went to every day, not every day, but a couple of days out of the week. And a lot of my neighbors are Jewish, and I understood how it felt to be a part of a Jewish community.
Yeah.
And then thought about what it would feel like if that Jewish community was attacked because they're Jewish.
Yeah.
I can relate to many things as a black man, like anytime there's a black person, particularly black men, but anyone shot and killed by police officers, that resonates with me. I have 3 sons. So those thoughts come, it makes it very real. I remember when Antwon Rose was shot, the first thought that came to my mind was, where are my sons?
Yeah.
So those things are very real. But if you're Jewish, the Tree of Life has a very particular resonance with you, because that is your identity, that's your faith, that's your culture, and someone thought that you shouldn't be able to be free, able to express and be who you are. So there's a lot that we have to do in this world, and what you hope is that through very horrific tragedies like this, that people grow and learn and people come together, and nothing like that happens again.
Yeah. It's strange to grow up in Pittsburgh, where sports bring a city together like no other town, right? I mean, no
Mhm.
offense to Cleveland, but no, I mean, like, that was our pride. Like, it's like the Steelers win the Super Bowl, we're all outside yelling, banging pots and pans, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, and I guess knowing how, like, everybody congregates up street, like, and when I say up street, like, that's
Mhm.
Forbes and Murray,
Okay.
like, when the Steelers win or when the Pens win or whatever
Okay.
it is, but to congregate up street for something like that, for that vigil,
Mhm.
and I mean, I've never, it expands your spectrum of emotion. Like, you've got celebration here and you've got mourning here, and
Mhm.
when you hit those, I mean, that defines it's like the human experience in a weird way. Not that, you know, something like that should be part of the human experience, but I think to be able to mourn, even if it's the loss of just a longtime community member, like,
Right.
those are that I don't know, and that it's weird that something that made me feel closer to my community is what ultimately led to me leaving.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say I'm not gonna move back at some point, because I'm sure at some point in my life I will live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania again. But I don't know. Maybe it was the thing I needed to feel connected enough to move forward a little bit, you know, or try another place.
Yeah. It also reminds you, I mean, tomorrow is promised to none of us, right? I mean, to no one.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, a motivation to, like, what are you going to do to address this world or make a difference? And yeah, I mean, it's interesting how things impact our lives and motivate us to do things. But obviously, you made a great decision to get out and step out of your comfort zone. Maybe that was part of it.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, the comfort zone, like, the things that make you uncomfortable are simply just because you don't know the answers
Mhm.
to some questions. And I do think it does come around to either going and just trying to answer those questions,
Yeah.
or, you know, talking to people, whether it's an alumni of your school or, you know, whoever. I think being able to have that conversation with someone about, hey, is Pittsburgh, Kansas really what it, you know, is? Like, I don't even know where it is, and now
Right.
I'm obsessed with the place. I've got Pittsburgh, Kansas. I mean, look,
This is
my final
this is your
shirt-
final wardrobe change.
Well, yeah, because
Okay. Pittsburgh, Kansas. What is it? Hell yeah. Is that what
Yeah.
it's? Okay.
I love it. I mean, I think what's really neat is that I didn't, you know, 10 months ago, I didn't know where Pittsburgh, Kansas was.
Yeah.
And now I feel pride in a place that I had no connection to before. And to know that that's happening everywhere. And yes, you know, that means that there are communities, whether they're, you know, geographically based,
Mhm.
religiously based, however, like, to know that they can mourn together, but just as quickly as they can celebrate together, like, I think that's what it's all about. Like, to me, like, to learn about a new place and then become part of it, it's so
Yeah.
special. I don't know. People say small towns have small town pride. Like, oh my gosh. I mean, I think you have Cleveland pride. I've got Pittsburgh pride. You've got Pittsburgh pride.
Yeah.
Now I've got, well, you know,
You got
Pittsburgh pride.
Pittsburgh. Now I'm less judgmental towards people who will, like, maybe apply for a job or write a letter or send an email and they'll spell Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania without an H, and I'm just like, ah. But now, you know, context. It's like, hey, there is actually a Pittsburgh from the context of folks in Kansas. It's normal to not have an H after the G.
Yeah.
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 So, I'm sorry for anyone I judged. I'm sorry.
On behalf of the city of
On behalf of the city of Pittsburgh, we
we
need to be more open-minded about the H.
accept Kenyon's apology. I mean, I think what's cool about that, I think you're totally right. Like, you know, it's one thing to just be like, all right, well, I know there was a tornado in Joplin, and I know that Pittsburgh is spelled without an H. That's all I knew. I didn't really know where in Missouri, and I didn't even know Missouri was next to Kansas.
Yeah.
And to add context to those places in a way where it not just defies what you are, you know, expecting of it, but it emotionally pulls you in. And that's my job too. I mean, my job is to tell stories stories about the people who make these places what they are.
Right.
And so through my work, I'm becoming connected to these places. And the same way through your work, you become connected to the school because of the students. I mean, that's,
Absolutely.
I don't know, it's really neat. There was a guy one of the 11 people who died in the Tree of Life shooting. His name was Cecil Rosenthal. His sister Michelle was she's a really close family friend, and she worked for the Steelers doing community relations at one point. And she's awesome, and her brother Cecil had some mental challenges. I think he was always involved with synagogue, as I think is a place to keep him engaged in the community. And when I was in Hebrew school as a young kid growing up, you walk into the chapel, and he would be right there handing you your book.
Okay.
He always handed people the book. I don't know, like, do you go to church? So do they have somebody there to like give you a book as you walk in?
A program, typically. Yeah.
A program, yeah. So Cecil was there with the stack of books, and he would hand them to me, and he handed me a book at all these different ages.
Yeah.
And I remember I never thought about Cecil that much. And when I heard about, how everything unfolded last year with this shooting, like I guess he was there handing out books when everything happened. And it made me really stop and think about the people who play a role in our lives, who yes, take for granted, but have a much bigger role and story than we might realize, or sometimes even care to admit. So, one of the reasons we brought on someone like, Ophelia, like being the first, guest on Pit Tonight with the Chancellor, like that, Ophelia's a perfect example of that person who plays a role in your everyday life, but you would never think about that.
But are so very important to like students. Like just one person can make a big difference, and it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter their title, their degrees. It's just.
Do you drive to work?
I do drive.
Oh yeah, we're in your car.
Yeah, I drive. I drive this thing.
This is
it.
So, where do you park at?
I park in Soldiers and Sailors.
Yeah. So, is there someone you see every day? I guess you go to the machine, or you.
No, it's all automatic. So there are a couple of people. There's a guy who works. He's like security. I see him every day. I speak. And there's a woman who's typically in the booth. But yeah, certain people that you pass every day and you just kind of say hi to, or do the head. I do a head nod too, like, so I'm trying to bring this to Pittsburgh. Me and a few other students. Yeah, just you see people and you just like, you may not know their name, but you just recognize, hey, you're from Pitt, I'm from Pitt, and you just do one of these.
Yeah.
Like, what's up? It's just real simple.
It's the Pitt handshake. I see. I used to go. So yeah, I'm a fan of that too. I have also done the dab. It doesn't really work as well. Yo.
I might ask you if you're all right if you do that.
Go to Pitt.
Yeah, the head nod. It's like a subtle like sup. Instead of saying what's up, it's just like a sup.
What's up? Yeah. Just sup. Yeah. I'm here for it. I think there's, I don't know, those interactions are priceless, because it's part of it, like builds the comfort of your routine.
Right.
But yeah, I just think those people, like, those are the stories I want to tell. Like, I get to be a features reporter. I'm not just a show host. Like, I get to go and I find a story, and I get to write the story, and highlight these people who are collecting stamps or are origami pros, and they've done it since they were kids because they struggled socially, and now they help people who are struggling socially learn.
Right.
Or oh my gosh, a great one was this guy. He is a noxious weed specialist.
Noxious weed specialist. Okay, you have to explain that one to me.
So noxious weeds are the dangerous flowers that grow in the Midwest and in farmlands.
Okay.
That can destroy your entire crop. And so they are, they're buried deep in, but then, whenever you start to get too many, they can poison everything. They'll kill your plants.
Okay.
And they can ruin someone's job, their life's work,
Right.
whatever it might be. And so this guy goes around the area of southeast Kansas, and he fights. I mean, it's almost like fighting domestic terrorism from plants, in the sense that he's going around and he spots it. He's gotten to be able to spot it when he's driving. I think he covers not 1,000
Wow.
miles, 100 miles, like, perimeter.
What is he? Then he like whips out his like his like herbicide or something.
Yeah,
like
so he's got these chemical compounds that like destroy it, and he keeps the economy of southeast Kansas going. No one has really any idea this guy exists.
Wow.
And I don't know. Those are the people that I really just like. I kind of live for those people.
Well, I think they're in many ways the most interesting people. Like,
Yeah.
you're just amazed at how much beauty and talent and creativity and uniqueness that exists within like people.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are interesting stories to tell, and probably without someone like you, those stories are not told, like, to a large audience.
Right. Yeah, and I've always wondered, and maybe you know the answer to this. I think what draws me to them is, frankly, their humility. Their just comfort in not wanting to let the world know what they do in a flashy way or
Right.
anything. Like, it's their thing. I don't know, they love it. I mean, do you think it's something more than that? Like, do you think there's... I guess I'm just... It baffles me. I will comfortably say, I enjoy attention in the sense that I enjoy spotlights so I can shine it on the person next to me.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy entertaining and cracking a joke, but it's really to prove a point. So with people who don't seek that,
Right.
what do you think? What drives them? I mean, you're one of those people.
I don't know if I would put myself in that category, but I mean, I think people, I think humility is it's a virtue that more people should have. I think just some people are just driven by their purpose, and I think when you're driven by your purpose, you don't look for or need, recognition, because you believe that you're doing what you were put here to do. And I think that's what motivates those folks.
Yeah.
And when it's motivated from that source, I think people who recognize that, like, feel it and sense it. So I think it's just the folks who, like, this is my purpose, I believe in it, and this is what I'm going to commit my time, talent, and treasure to. And I think that's what just emanates from those folks.
So is Pitt more about finding your purpose, or honing your purpose?
For me, or for just anyone?
I think for anyone.
I think it's ambitious to say that everyone will find their purpose here, but hopefully we provide an environment where you get closer to understanding what your purpose is.
Did you ever play Mario Kart?
I have played, yeah, a long time ago. I haven't played in a while.
I love Mario Kart. So I'm remembering the things you can run over to speed up.
Okay.
Those little rainbow looking things?
Right.
So you're like driving at whatever speed they set everyone's car to.
Mm-hmm.
But when you run over those things, you really get that boost. You get momentum.
Right.
I feel like that's what something like Pitt is, where you get like just all the momentum you need. You're propelled into really finding that purpose.
Right.
Because otherwise, I mean, the resources of being able to try things out. I mean, the zoo/jungle of college. Like,
Right.
You don't get that playground, and so I think by having that, you get like a lot of. I mean, it can go off the rails. Don't you? Gotta stay.
Right. If you hit the banana, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the banana will always be there, so you gotta
Right.
keep an eye out for it. But I think like, if you can get that extra little push that I think college is designed to do, I think it's really healthy. So
I do too.
I don't know, that's awesome. But thank you very much
Oh,
for the ride.
it's my pleasure, Jesse.
Really-
It's great catching up to you.
I'm so happy to hear you're doing well.
Yeah, me too. Hearing you and seeing you, very proud of you, and
Thanks.
this is always home to you. So let us know what we can do to help or if you need anything.
I need some money.
You need some money?
Have any
Yeah,
money.
I think I might. I don't carry cash on me anymore.
Okay.
I just got change here.
You know
but
what? I'm gonna take one of
You
the
wanna
little
take the little trees?
Yeah. Black. Oh yeah.
The smell good for your car.
Yeah. This is great. Thank you. I
All right,
appreciate
you're welcome.
it.
All right, thanks.
Where do you get these?
I got those at Target. Yeah, Target's one of my favorite stores. It's a little fun
These are,
fact.
yeah, you can actually have that. I don't need to take this from you. I'm thinking more about the idea of when sorry, I know you have to go somewhere, but I think the idea of like, okay, I'm Jewish and I connect to this experience because I'm Jewish, and the idea, okay, I'm black, I associate with only black shoes. I think that's like, it's debunking that. I think you are probably farther along in understanding that than I am, like, on, like, because I still, like, I think my way of approaching it's like group to group. And I've believe me, I've gotten so much better, but I think it's a really interesting concept. That,
Yeah.
like, it's not just, like Wasi, I remember, like, last year talking to him about this, about how, like, this, we're here because it affects a community, but it also, like, it affects the umbrella just as much.
Yeah, it's a human issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I identify as a human being first and foremost. My life is informed by my identity, but like I connect, like we're all human beings. I just have a personal philosophy that we're human beings and human beings should be treated with dignity and respect. We should all have a sense of belonging. Yeah, because of how we're structured and how we're socialized, identities have a huge impact on our experience, but at the core, you bleed just like I bleed.
Yeah.
Right? You feel pain and joy just like I do, and so you're a brother in humanity before anything else. That's just how I live my life. So
How do you approach when you have to write these press releases, these statements? I mean, God, I dread having to just approach that because you do have to do it, and you have to be able to articulate in a way that is, you're balancing like so many of like pressures of people reading these things. And I know you work with your team to do that.
yeah.
Like, it's like, what do you? I guess you have to say something. I don't know.
Like there's not everything, but yeah, sometimes I'm compelled to say something because I think it'll help the community.
Yeah.
Like call out something that needs to be called out to recognize how it affected people in the community. Then also this notion of bringing us together, like what can we do together? Like an optimism, that's coming from, like, I'm optimistic. Yeah, I'm very clear that there's some really bad things going on in the world, and many people don't treat each other with kindness. But I'm optimistic that there's a inner strength and beauty in all of this. So just trying to balance that. Sometimes the first draft is just straight gut emotion.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go to the second draft and think of like, how can I really do this justice and bring people together, but also call out what the issue is.
Yeah.
And then just have a lot of help and people giving perspectives and a lot of diverse people.
The optimism part is what I struggle with. I think for one reason or another, and it might be life experience, it might be whatever, but I think I'm looking at like, okay, well, not on the bright side, but almost like, okay, well, moving forward, let's do that. Very, you want to be proactive, but I think sometimes like people just need a longer amount of time. So balancing that like reactive nature to it, that's got to be so difficult. I respect you so much for tackling
it is. It's very difficult, yeah. And and you're not gonna please everyone. If you go in thinking that I'm gonna write this and everyone's gonna feel really good about it or perfect, it just never happens because people are very different. But if it's coming from the heart and you've had a lot of people give you feedback, and not just a lot of people, but people with different perspectives, like you need someone to say, I don't agree with that. And I think that just makes it a stronger message. But I think the purpose is what happened, how do we bring the community together, how do we call out what we are and who we are and our values, and that's just how I've kind of led many of the statements that I've written.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool position to be in, to be able to write that, to help people, as much as to help yourself feel good about it. It's like there's a lot of impact I think you get to make both personally and like communally.
Yeah, and then you have to be open to feedback afterwards. Like people will say, well, And then you just take that into consideration. So.
Right. That's
All right. Thanks,
crazy.
Jesse. Yep.
Thank you
Yep.
very much.
I think this is the longest, but it was a great one. Yeah.
No, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about this stuff. I hear you keep basketball shoes in your car.
I do. I do.
Do you just pull up to random parks and challenge people?
No. Only if challenged.